This is Pre-Calc section 7.1 on horizontal parabolas. The formula for a horizontal parabola at the origin has the y being squared, so it's y squared equals 4cx. Notice we still have this 4c coefficient. It is in front of x, which is the non-squared variable. The formula for the horizontal parabola with vertex hk is y minus k quantity squared equals 4c times the quantity x minus h. That looks very similar to the vertical parabola, but it is the y quantity being squared. So it's going to look something like y squared equals 4cx, or y minus k quantity squared equals 4c times x minus h. At any rate, it's the y squared that tells you it is a horizontal parabola. You also can think about it this way. Think about the non-squared item. When it's x, which you have right there on the side, is a horizontal parabola. So whatever way you can come up with to memorize which is which, because you will see on a test or math lab just the formula and you'll have to realize which type of parabola it is. So we've got our vertex at hk. Our axis of symmetry this time is y equals something, because it is a sideways parabola. That axis of symmetry is going to go through the origin this way. So it is a horizontal line. Since it's a horizontal parabola, the axis of symmetry is a horizontal line. Focus, because it is a horizontal parabola, means you're going to add and subtract c from h, h being the x part, which is the horizontal part of the vertex. Also, if c is less than 0, the parabola will face left. If c is greater than 0, the parabola will face right. It is the same thing as we had on the vertical parabola. The focus is inside the parabola. The directrix is outside. The directrix is a vertical line. So the absolute value of c is the distance from the vertex to the focus, or the distance from the vertex to the directrix. That's the same thing it was for the vertical parabola. If c is greater than 0, it opens right. If c is less than 0, it opens left. The focus is inside the parabola and the directrix is outside the parabola. That's the same thing it was for the vertical parabola, but the difference is the directrix now is x equals some number. And a horizontal parabola has c added or subtracted from h to find the focus and directrix. You could think about it this way. Think about h for horizontal means you're going to add and subtract from the h of the vertex to get your focus and your directrix. So my first equation is y squared equals negative 28x. A couple things. As soon as you look at this and you see y being squared, you know it is a horizontal parabola. Also, because this coefficient over here is negative, it's going to open left. So let's start graphing this. The vertex is 0, 0, because there are no parentheses with the x or the y. So the vertex is 0, 0, and I know it faces left, so it looks something like this. Don't know how fat or skinny it is, but it faces left, and that's really all I need to know. The axis of symmetry is y equals the k part of your vertex, which is 0, because the axis is this line running right through the parabola. C is found the same way. Take that coefficient that's in front of the non-squared item and set that equal to 4c. Divide by 4, so c is negative 7. I know my focus is inside the parabola, and I know my directrix, that's a horrible looking line, but I know my directrix is outside of the parabola, and I know it is a 7-unit thing. It's 7 units this way, 7 units that way. So not using the formula, I'm counting this way from the vertex, this way 7 units, which will land at negative 7, 0. Now if you want to use the formula, your formula says to find the focus, it is h plus c, comma, k. So h was 0, plus c, which is actually negative 7, comma, k, which is 0, is how I end up with negative 7, 0. So as I said before, do what you want, use the formula, or do a little bit of reasoning. To get your directrix, we're going 7 in the other direction. And where does that put me? That puts me over there at positive 7. It's a vertical line, so it is x equals positive 7. If you'd rather use the formula says x equals h minus c. So h was 0, minus negative 7 is how it turns into positive 7. Here's one that's not at the origin. Our vertex will be negative 8, 5. Just be careful when you're naming the vertex on one of these. don't look at it from left to right. It's not 5 comma negative 8. It's the value that's with x goes first, the value that's with y goes second, and we are still changing those signs. The axis of symmetry for this kind of parabola is y equals 5. There is no coefficient for an x over here, so I can think about this as being 1 times the quantity x plus 8. So c will be found by doing 4c equal to 1, divide by 4, and c is 1/4. So let's get that put on the graph. Because y is squared, I know it is a sideways parabola, so it is a horizontal parabola. Because that coefficient is positive, I know it's going right. So from the vertex of negative 8, 5, which is somewhere here, it does not have to be exact, we know it is going to face to the right. And we know that our focus is inside and that our directrix is outside. Where is the focus specifically? It is 1/4 to the right. So I was at negative 8. Going to the right would be adding 1/4, and then the y value stays the same. Clean that up with your calculator, and that will give you negative 31/4, comma 5. Your directrix is going 1/4 of a unit back to the left. So your directrix is the vertical line, x equals negative 8 minus 1/4, which is negative 33/4. Here we have one that is not in the standard form, but we can use our negative b over 2a, but we have to be careful with something. This is still a, this is still b, this is still c. And when I do negative b over 2a, negative of negative 8 is 8. 2 times negative 8 means this is 8 over negative 16, which reduces to negative 1/2. And what we have just found is k, because this was y squared. What we just found was k. So my vertex is something comma negative 1/2. So that's a big deal that you have to keep that straight with this kind of parabola. Now that I have the negative 1/2, all I have to do is plug negative 1/2 in. Now, this may look weird to you, but you can stow negative 1/2 as x, and then on your calculator using x, you can type this in. Even though the formula up here said y, we are using it to find x, so this works out just fine. If you plug negative 1/2 into that formula, you will get negative 6. Our vertex is negative 6, negative 1/2, so just barely right here. Looking back at the original, because that coefficient is negative, I know it faces left. So it's going to look something like this. The axis of symmetry is a horizontal line. Because it's a horizontal line, I use the y value. Y equals negative 1/2. Now this is not asking for focus and directrix. This one is asking for the domain and the range. For a horizontal parabola, we're looking at the domain. This is facing left, so coming in from the left, we're coming in from negative infinity, and we are going as far as the vertex, specifically the x value of the vertex, which is negative 6. The range for a horizontal parabola is the infinity family, negative infinity to infinity, because it's taking off up, taking off going down. All right, here's another one of these where we need to work backwards. We have some information and we have to come up with the equation. So have this focus of 7, 5 and a directrix of x equals negative 3. If you are familiar with the formula at all, if the directrix is a vertical line, then you know your parabola has got to be sideways. There's no way your parabola can go this way. The directrix does not go through your parabola. So as soon as you look at the directrix being x equals negative 3, you know you have a horizontal parabola. Now the other thing I can put on this graph is that I have a focus of over 7 up 5. So not only is it a horizontal parabola, I know that this is going to face to the right because the focus has to be inside. So I'm just kind of tracing this out. I'm not drawing it yet, but I'm tracing it out. The focus has to be inside the parabola and the directrix has to be outside of the parabola. The standard form for a horizontal parabola is y minus k quantity squared equals 4c times x minus h. Now to find the vertex, I have to do a little bit of work. we know that the vertex is going to have to be somewhere along this line, right along in here. The vertex has got to be somewhere in here. Specifically, it needs to be halfway between the focus and the directrix. So if the focus is over here at 7, 5, and the directrix is over here at -3, to find the vertex, I will do the midpoint between those numbers. -3 plus 7 over 2 will be 4 over 2 is 2. Now there's no work needed to find the y part. That vertex has got to be along the same horizontal line as the focus. Therefore, the y part, which is the k, is 5. So the vertex is 2, 5. Now the other thing is, if this is a 2, 5, we can use that information to come up with c. Remember, c is the distance from the vertex over to the focus. So if you're at 2 and you land at 7, that is a distance of 5. So c is 5. I could have just as easily gone backwards from 2 back to -3 is also 5. And what that does is verify that my vertex is right smack in the middle. So I can continue my sketch here. I know it faces to the right. I had to go through the vertex, and there's my picture. So your equation is a matter of stuffing this into this standard form. So it is y minus k, which is y minus 5 squared, equals 4 times c, which is 5, times x minus 2. Clean that up, is y minus 5 squared equals 20 times x minus 2.